extra minutes as everyone starts joining into the webinar. Today, I'm Brandon Young. I'm going to be your guide, question taker, attempt to be question answer as much as humanly possible, because last time we've done this, we had some fantastic questions, kept us busy for a good 15 minutes of the conversation. So we're going to be running through something similar today. Want to join today? I'm joined today by Dror Weiss, CEO and co-founder of Tabnine. I'm going to give us a little bit of fun color while everyone's jumping in, so we won't jump off too fast right into the content, but want to welcome you all to what honestly actually has been a pretty awesome day. So today, for those of you that signed up for the webinar before today, you probably didn't realize, but today we're pushing out into beta, sort of the next generation of where we're headed with Tabnine. And that means we're headed towards helping teams of developers. And today we push out unit testing as a beta feature. If you're interested, check out the website, a lot of the announcements in the Wall Street Journal and otherwise. Please feel free to jump in and sign up for the closed beta if you would like. But I think what this really highlights, and you'll see this throughout today in the context sort of as the foundation of where we've been, is we've spent a lot of time over the last 7 years for us at Tabnine building out the developer interaction. And last year we jumped into really helping teams, helping enterprises on this. And so what we did first off was integrate it with your Git repositories, which is an obvious place to build custom models and really help you get the most out of your code, your specific, custom, important, unique code. And today we launched test generation, which will kind of be the next phase and accelerating features and capabilities that kind of are going to come out with Tabnine. So now that I give a little context, a little what's going on in the industry, please, couple quick housekeeping pieces. One, if you have questions, there's a Q&A. So please answer or ask, I should say, I'm sorry, ask as many questions you want in the Q&A. I'm going to be both monitoring them. If they're straightforward, I may answer some questions. I'll try and put a bunch of fun links in there. We'll also use that sort of when we get to the end of time for Dror to answer those as well. So please add that context as we're going through it. It helps an enormous amount. I'm watching them. And so I will also bug Dror and occasionally add color commentary, questions, redirections as we go. So with that else, hey, Dror, thank you for joining us in later evening there in Tel Aviv. Please, if you would, jump into where what this journeys look like for you. I know you've been at this for years as a development manager. So in terms of what we're talking about, this is your pain just like everyone else's for many years. Walk us a bit through where you've been and how you're seeing this evolve, both from why you developed the product and why we've done what we've done, and then also from the many customer conversations you've been having in 2023.
Yeah, thanks, Brandon. Yeah, so as Brandon said, I've been a developer for 20-something years now, since the happy 90s. Later, I've been a development manager, engineering manager, product manager. And basically what we've seen throughout all the places where I've worked is how repeatable the development work it can often really be. So we all use the same framework, the same libraries, the same APIs, and really the what got us to start Tabnine to pursue AI for software development is the question: okay, can we let developers and teams and organizations focus on the really differentiated specific parts of their work, while basically getting all the generic, mundane, tedious, repetitive things out of the way using AI. So as Brandon said, we've been working on the technology for quite some time, and excited to share with you where we see the world of AI for software development right now, the current applications, the current challenges, and the current opportunity, obviously. And as Brandon said, feel free to ask questions. So let me start before. So this is now a sort of preemptive action because we're getting asked all the time, hey Dror, is AI going to replace developers? So when we started working on the when we started working on this problem domain, people were asking half jokingly, and in the last few months, and more so after ChatGPT was released, we get asked this question even more often now that everybody is familiar with AI. So I think the answer is that developers are here to stay. AI is Tabnine and other products are wonderful tools that make developers more efficient, more effective, letting them focus on the parts of the job that matters, which is solving customer problems. And I think AI. So AI is not replacing developers. Quite the contrary. I think that every developer, or the vast majority of developers, are gonna make AI a part of their workflow on a daily basis, and we already see this happening big time. So a quick background about Tabnine. And Brandon, feel free to interject if you want to add or question already from the crowd. So we are Tabnine. We are leaders and pioneers in the space of AI-assisted software development. Currently, Tabnine serves more than 1 million developers who use Tabnine in their daily workflow, in their editor to write better code faster. Developers who use Tabnine see, I think, a pretty remarkable already number of around 40% of the code that they create is simply accepting suggestions that Tabnine creates. This is the first core use case of Tabnine, and this category for AI developer assisted is basically generating code using the AI. There are sophisticated models that can predict the code that the developer would need based on context, and this now yields in about 40% speed up. And our users are first and foremost professional developers, basically having a day job at tech companies or IT departments or other organizations or system integrators that create software for living. And we see developers and teams and enterprises using our product basically from all over the world. I include just a few names, but the list is countless. Okay.
Sure.
So,
quick. Actually,
yeah.
I think an interesting context is just be fun for people that this is sort of new to on your previous page. What are some interesting observations? We've been through a number of iterations and as Tabnine has grown, but what are some iterations in terms of how people have used Tabnine, where they're most productive in using it? I think some insights, some of the question had been just, hey, how much of this code? But I think maybe a little context in terms of, we've had shorter suggestions, longer suggestions. What have we seen from the user's experience in that process?
Yeah, so I think that's thanks for the question. So the product evolved quite a bit in the last few years as the technology matured. And basically what we've seen, Tabnine helps customers and developers the most is with maybe three use cases. One is basically accelerating. This is if I'm writing a piece of code for sending a HTTP request in Python, for instance. Yes, I've done that a few times, but I don't necessarily remember the syntax. So the AI can basically remind me or show me the correct solution, and once I see it, I will identify it instantly. And what we've seen is basically giving the user, the developer, the opportunity to make a really quick judgment whether the code is right for them is key for successful adoption of the product. So this time saving here is primarily not in, we're not interested in saving keystrokes. We're interested in saving the context switch for going to search for code, to search for examples, to look, to sift through example and basically synthesize the pattern. This is what the AI does very well, and it does that automatically, and it does that in literally milliseconds. So this is the core use case, saving the need to search. And by the way, this also not just gives the results faster. This creates typically much fewer errors of all kinds. The other part that we see developers really enjoy the product is to be exposed to basically answers or code patterns that they weren't even familiar with. So for me as an experienced developer, when I used Tabnine, I was looking to test the product for for tasks that I was sure I knew the best way to implement them, and then Tabnine would come with a new solution I wasn't familiar with, and guess what? It was better than what I thought to be the optimal suggestion. So Tabnine also expands the knowledge, and when trained on the customer repository, Tabnine is able to create code that is more consistent with the local best practice, which is also a key. And this is true. The suggestions vary in length. I'll show a few examples in the next slide. But yeah, does this answer your question?
Yeah, Dror, that's great, and you've built on another question that just came in from Sarba, and I apologize if I got that wrong, but had asked, hey, where do we think it's going to be in a couple of years? And I think you're opening up exactly where this is. I'll answer this directly in writing, but I think what you'll see is the first steps are going to be answering and solving the quick mundane issues. Importance of that is it drives productivity and easy adoption, and that's critical. It does it well inline. Dror highlighted that it also expands what is possible, in particular when you have a custom model and you're training, you've trained on code that is unique to your use case. So I think Dror hit a little bit there. And then actually Dror also hit a bit longer in terms of where this technology get applied more broadly in the software development lifecycle. So I think those are quick ones. I'll answer the questions in writing, but Dror, I think you're right on the same path. Everyone keep asking the questions. I have them rolling in, so I'll do my best to add them either way.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, so where is this generative AI for code today? So today is developer adoption of AI is reaching mainstream. There are obviously Tabnine is a product, but there are other products in the market by OpenAI, by Microsoft, by Amazon, and they are the key use case that got really popular with millions of developers. We believe we are the biggest in terms of numbers of users, but I believe that between 1.5 and 2 million developers already use these tools on a daily basis. On the Tabnine alone serves more than 1 million users. And right now, it's the developers are adopting the technology as individuals. So every developer can basically use any of these products, integrate them into their IDE, and start seeing the benefits almost immediately. Okay, but where and how this is working for developers. We touched on this, but it's fairly simple. There are a few use cases. First of all, is code-to-code prediction. Okay, where I am writing a piece of code, and then Tabnine has or the other products as well, has a model that runs in the background in the cloud. And based on the context, in a fraction of a second, it's able to predict the code that I would need. It suggests it in this gray block, and pressing tab, I accept it. And it can also work the same with in natural language to code. If I'm writing a comment in my code, okay, Tabnine would generate code that basically satisfies or performs the task that I asked him to inline in the IDE. The example that I show here are from Python in Visual Studio Code, but it works also basically on all popular programming languages, including Java, JavaScript, TypeScript, Go, PHP, Rust, C, C++. I may forget a few, but all the popular languages are basically covered, also TypeScript. And it works for all popular IDEs, including IntelliJ, Vim, and all the others. So this is the basic use case for developers, and what we see today in the market is, I think it's very interesting. What we see start unfolding is how human intelligence of the developer and the artificial intelligence result in developer superpowers. So we talked about repetitive code getting automated, so you just stub it through, you fast forward as a developer, but also the ability to stay in the flow. I personally, if I can get sometimes easily distracted. So if I need to go to my browser and search for code examples, or to my own repository to search for code example, I know how I'm living my IDE, but I don't know where I'll return, because there's so many distractions, and the value of staying in the flow, of having the code, of having the knowledge contextualized to your IDE, to the code that you are working on, is extremely valuable. I talked earlier about error prevention, and I talked about using best practice, and I think the overarching thing that this kind of tools allow is for developers to stay focused on the problem at hand, of the business problem or customer problem they're looking to solve. I think it also takes a little bit of training, of change I mean, you can work and get value from Tabnine without changing anything in your workflow. But if developers adopt a few habits, they can get much more productivity and value from this tool. So with an AI, development becomes sort of a two-player game. The developers can basically write all sorts of guidance, or more declarative manifests of what they want to happen, and the AI can implement it. How they do it? They do it by using meaningful names for functions. So I can write the function signature, and the AI will implement it if it's able to. And I can also write my intent in natural language through some comments in the code. So these are ways how developers sort of prompt in the IDE what the AI, what they want the AI to do. And the other side of it, once the AI gives suggestion, I think a core new capability for developer is going to be to quickly evaluate code suggestions and be able to deal with cases where the AI generates code that is relevant but not perfect. Not doesn't do exactly what they want and then tweak it and adjust it. So this really changes the workflow quite a bit to make. But once developers get used to working this way, it makes very little sense to go back. This is I think a productivity level that developers who start using AI effectively can never imagine going back.
Sure. This kind of ties into a question from Isaac, and he's curious whether or not we've seen or where we would, if we'd recommend Tabnine as a learning tool. And I think really interesting question. I want to always be careful about saying Tabnine does something that when a purpose fit tool does something is learning. So I think I want to be careful, but I think there are some interesting spots that could be very valuable. And thought maybe you can expound a little bit because fits kind of right into where you're talking about human intelligence mixing with AI.
Yeah, this is a great question. I am always in favor of using the best tools and technology out there when learning. I just want to add caveats. And this applies when taking code from AI, and likewise when taking code from the internet and friends. It's wonderful that you have a tool that suggests solution for you. It is very good, but I think it is critical as a somebody who, as a person who's learning the craft, to make sure you understand the suggestion, to make sure you understand the code. Exactly in the same way where as developer who works at a company is responsible for the code, to defend it in code review, to maintain it, to teach others about what it does. The same way a person who's learning must be able to understand the code that the AI generates. Otherwise they're just, tinkering. I mean, I've done a fair share of that, tinkering without really know what they're doing. But it's usually very advisable to understand what you're doing. And I think the Tabnine can give really useful pointers as to what you what solutions you want to explore. It's much better than starting with a clean slate.
Awesome. And Jor, I think this might have some futures. You talk about where we're headed. I think the code to comment, other way around, the reverse view on this becomes something that's interesting. And I would say we've seen with organizations that there's learning different between an individual on their own and an individual as part of an organization. And certainly one of the places we've been pretty focused on over the last 9 months to a year has been how that works for organizations. And so you'll see a lot of the capabilities in helping a new developer to an organization, and the context there is something that I think we're pretty excited about, being able to really help new developers into organizations. So I think we'll hit a little bit more on that. And I got to get back to answering my 1,000 questions because I'm behind, Dror. Keep going. You're asking. You're doing great. I'm trying to keep up with them.
So as I've said now, the AI for developers is reaching mainstream with millions of developers already trying and adopting these tools. But what we've seen in the last 6 months, and even more so in the last 2 months, is that enterprises are starting to really seriously look into how they can introduce AI into their development workflow. And this started as a drip, and it's getting much stronger. And we believe it is still just the early adopters. So why are engineering organizations looking at AI for their teams? So the enterprise look, okay, they ask, can this technology get me quicker to market? Can I ship my software faster? And then they ask, okay, if the AI is so wonderful at predicting what code I need, can it increase the overall code quality of my project? Can it make every developer on my team write in the same standard as the best developer in my team? Okay, then to the question of onboarding, Brandon mentioned it just a couple of minutes ago. We know that every organization of size has some turnaround of people, experienced people leaving and new people coming in. If I can reduce the time it takes for developers to be really productive on a code base, this is really meaningful. If I can get somebody productive in 3 weeks instead of 2 months, wow, I just got so much value out of that person. And finally, almost every company wants their developers to use the best tools that are there, because we're happy when we feel we use the state of the art. Okay, and developers and companies ask, okay, my developers want it. I want my developers to be happy. Can this contribute to the satisfaction of developers in the team, which is also pretty important, in addition to all the utilities that I mentioned earlier. And we believe that the AI is the answer. The answer is yes to all of these questions. And for enterprises, this is going to be the next wave of adoption, the next wave of productivity. So just like every software development organization today, everybody is using source control, Git of some sort, and everybody is using continuous integration and continuous deployment. Every organization is going to have an AI layer. It basically informs everybody in the organization how to how to create correct code for that organization. It's going to be a strategic part of the dev stack for every organization, and we believe not only every organization will have AI going forward. I'm going to show you a few examples of how we think about it. AI is going to be a part of every aspect of the software development lifecycle. So today, we're already helping in the coding phase, but going forward, we're gonna also help in the build phase, debug phase, test phase, code review, deployment, basically all aspects of the software development lifecycle. And by the way, literally today, as Brandon mentioned earlier, we released our first feature in the test aspect of Tabnine, which is the ability to generate tests based on the code automatically with the AI.
I'm going to jump in here, Danushka. This would be the slide I would bring up for you on your question of, hey, can you explain where Tabnine might be different from Copilot? What you're seeing here is the way we think about it is the entire life cycle. And this combined with focused high custom models allow an entire team to be oriented around getting both the best suggestions from their unique code all the way through the entire pipeline. So if you think about it, that AI is really sitting atop of the source code and the pipeline that the integrations are done. Now this is all about moving a team forward. And I think that's pretty clear if you look at in terms of where the two solutions really focus. Copilot and Microsoft focused on sucking and using as much data as possible in Copilot, which is a really good fit for students or maybe an open source developer, but a very, very different use case than companies that have either proprietary code, unique code, high security requirements, or want to use it as a team. And so I think that's probably the easiest way to think of the two. I think both are powerful. Both have just fundamentally tried to answer the question for two fairly different two very different use cases, and the result is going to look quite different because of how it's architected, how it's built, how it's secured. And so feel free to add, Dror, but I think this slide I love because I think it does sort of draw the difference in the way we look at the world and what problem sets we're trying to accomplish or solve.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and I'm going to talk, I think, on very soon. I'm going to talk about how to choose the AI for your organization and touch on the differences between Tabnine and Copilot as well. Okay, so I want to share a little bit about our roadmap. So as I said at the beginning of the call, up until today, the category was mostly around code generation and mostly around productivity for individual developers. But there are some really exciting stuff going on a roadmap. I want to cover just a few of them. I think it is for me it is very exciting. So one thing that we're now offering for Tabnine Enterprise customer is the ability to train the AI on your specific code, on your private repositories. This is super important, especially for customers with significant amount of code, with their own libraries, their own infrastructure, their own software infrastructure, their own APIs. So this allows them to really get specialized guidance on how to use their specific things, and this allows even more productivity, but also consistency of the code and adherence to best practice patterns. Another thing, yeah, I talked about test generation that we launched literally today. Another thing that's coming soon is the ability to search in your source code, even natural language queries. So for instance, you'll be able, if you connect your code to Tabnine, you'll be able to ask questions such as, where do we create user records? Or what API can I use to send analytics event to our Snowflake, to our data platform? So these are coming in the very near future. Next quarter, we plan to add the ability to let people within organizations basically extend Tabnine with their own suggestions. So think about Tabnine as a system that guides everybody how to write code. And let's say that I built a new API. I can tell Tabnine, hey, this is the way I want you to recommend everybody on how to use this API. Or for instance, if there is some anti-pattern I don't want anybody to use now, I can tell Tabnine, hey, don't recommend any code from, for instance, from that repository. So basically, we're looking to, instead of everybody asking the experts or getting the feedback from experts in the code review, we're looking for a way to let the experts tell Tabnine one time, and then Tabnine would propagate that knowledge to everybody on the team. And the other big thing, which Brandon alluded to earlier, is the ability to generate not just code from comments, but the other way around, basically to explain code and generate documentation for code, because we all know, yes, developers are writing code, but a lot more they're reading code. I think there's a ratio of at least 3 to 1 in big projects, at least, between the time spent on reading code and writing code. Two additional exciting features coming later this year is the ability for the AI to spot potential issues in your code. And I think the big difference between this and tools like Sonar or static analysis tools, that with an AI code review, it's not a fixed set of rules that the AI validates, but basically the AI learns the rule of what's a correct code looks like automatically. So this is a very nice complementary to static analysis and code inspection tools. And in addition, we're looking to integrate with tools outside the code itself, such as Jira, Confluence, Notion, basically have a much fuller view of the organization landscape. Any questions, Brandon, now before I go on? Or
Yeah, my fingers are not good enough at typing on this. Sharif had a question, which was what your thoughts are in terms of how Tabnine might change expectations for developers and organizations when they come into it. What from things around implied knowledge, et cetera. And he kind of says, specifically thinking how this might have applications at junior level. And then he's wondering if this would disrupt the Lee coding interview process. As it turns out, Sharif, I've not had to go through a Lee coding interview process, so I'll have to let Dror decide if he wants to answer that. But I think the implications are right here. So I think maybe a little color on that would be wonderful, if you don't mind.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's how this is going to change the interview questions. It really depends on the style of interview. If interviewers who were searching for technical ability or memory, okay, do I remember all the APIs? Do I remember all the functions? Can I write code on a whiteboard? I think these kind of questions are either going to be shifted back to a whiteboard where you don't have AI, or they're gonna be, or the AI is gonna basically make these a lot of these questions much easier. I think my personal tendency is for interviews not to test how well the candidate knows the APIs, but how they analyze the problem, how they solve the problem. And I think again, I'm not super familiar with lit code interviews specifically, but I think interviews will shift towards sort of higher level. And I think the developer profession in generally is going to shift from purely technical to more towards, okay, how effective am I in solving the business problem at hand? I think this whole abstraction level is going up. So maybe skills like, okay, can this person reverse a linked list without, in place? Maybe this is going to be less interesting, and maybe more interesting question would be, can this candidate model the situation in a useful way and understand the trade-offs that in the development. So this is a long answer, but we'll see over the next year how this evolves. Okay, let me get to the next slide. We're nearing the end of the presentation. And I think somebody asked not directly about this, but I want to touch. Okay, if you're an engineering manager or director of IT or CIO or team leader or just a developer, and you look, okay, if you're a developer, you can use Tabnine or Copilot or whatever instantly. You don't need typically to make a big process change. But if you're looking to standardize, to make AI widely applicable in your organizations, I want to suggest some criteria that you may want to look at. First of all, do evaluate the code suggestions themselves for your specific use case. You can try the products in your IDE to see the performance, to see the quality of code suggestion, to see if each product, how well does it fare in your situation. But then the additional factors that you want to take into account. First of all, security. Every organization has different requirements when it comes to InfoSec. I think this is a big area of difference between Tabnine and Copilot. I think notably, Tabnine can run inside your corporate network, your VPC, or even on your physical servers. So basically, code doesn't leave your corporate network. If your security requires this is possible. And both Tabnine and Copilot can run in pure SaaS mode, where the code is sent to our secure cloud server. So, but if sending code to external party is an issue for you, then you would want to look at solutions that keep your code in your corporate network, like behind your firewall, like Tabnine. Intellectual property, I don't want to talk too much about it, but you should ask yourself what code the AI was trained on. Tabnine has a very clear list of licenses, of the permissive open source licenses that were used to train the model, and we can ensure customers that basically no GPL code, which you typically don't want in your commercial applications, was even used to train your model, which for many customers, this is very important to know and very relaxing, because typically our customers don't want any doubt whether the code that the AI suggests is GPL licensed. Thirdly, you want to look at the IDEs you have in your organizations and see can the product support all of them, because if you're introducing such a platform, you basically want all developers to benefit from them in a consistent way. This is, I think, another area where Tabnine is different than Copilot. Copilot is obviously support Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code. It has some support for non-Microsoft IDE, but this is now starting to lag behind the support to Microsoft IDE. So you want to evaluate that. And importantly, if you have significant amount of code in internal libraries and APIs, you want to, I think you really want to look at Tabnine Private, and we're the only one in the market who is able to basically train the AI on your code. So it suggests code that aligns with your best practices. Once you evaluate and suggest and decide how to start, we typically do a pilot of around 20 developers from the same group. We have one person, typically a tech lead or an architect, leading this internal effort. In a 30 to 60 minutes, everybody can become pretty proficient with the tool and they can start using, and then you can analyze the ROI based on subjective feedback from the developers, how much they think the product helps them. And also we provide reports as to the automation factor or productivity boost that you got thanks to the AI. If you're happy with that, then you can gradually expand usage to other groups within your organization. And then again, this is not available yet, but later this year, you can say, okay, I'm specialized. The first part is available, specializing the AI by integrating your code, and then also having the domain experts contribute their knowledge. And the really good news is that customers who try this product can have very little process change. They don't need to change tools. They simply developers install the plugin, they install the service, and they can get value really from the first day using the product. So I hope I touched the key points that you asked about how Tabnine is different from Copilot. Again, mostly security, IDE support, and ability to train on the customer code.
Yeah, Jared, this is kind of to your question, I
Yeah.
think, around the difference is, yes, you're going to continue to see test generation. You're going to see a lot of, you're going to see quite a bit of similarity in terms of what these tools can execute, or what they could do. You'll see them oftentimes, though, surfaced as a chat function or an API wrapper. I think, an open, a lot of API wrappers, little simple UI on the front of ChatGPT is certainly something you're going to see a lot of. What we are focused on is having that fully integrated into the whole software development lifecycle for an organization, and with custom models, and which is important because those good data in, good data out, your data in, your data out, not your data in, not your data out. And so that's just the nature of these models. So I think that's going to continue, Jared, to be the place that you're going to see the difference between Tabnine and some other ideas in the market. Wonderful. I have a bunch of questions, so I'm going to throw through. Zhao, you're asking, can Tabnine be integrated with Eclipse? Dror, you want to answer that one real quick?
Yeah. So we're releasing a new integration with Eclipse in, I think it's going to be literally next week. Okay, so stay tuned. By the end of the month, you should have something out.
Perfect. I'm going to answer a question in for Merrick. You're asking, your InfoSec department is looking for some requirements for running Tabnine on a device rather than in a cloud. How many resources does the JetBrains plugin consume? Let me do quick architecture piece here for you and for everyone. Tabnine consists of two primary pieces: the server and the client. The client runs, whether that's in JetBrains or VS Code or all the other IDEs. And then the server, which is going to be where it's doing the compute and the most of the work. In this case, your InfoSec, what we would do is set up a Tabnine server inside of your VPC. That could be on your cloud of choice. It could be on an OpenShift cluster on your Dell server. Totally options. And from there, that would serve out your internal users. In terms of the resources inside of JetBrains, that's going to be drastically different from what you already have today. So it's not on the individual and laptop question. You will have to have some GPUs. If anyone is interested, please just ask at sales@tabnine.com. We'll give you the requirements, the configs, and the details. But certainly that request is one of the primary reasons companies are and organizations have kind of come to Tabnine. So let me ask another. Good question here from Omar. This is going to be, I'm going to let this go to you. With AI, maybe companies will look only for senior and master developers because AI will be able to cover the junior ones. If so, that could be problematic in the market for juniors. They're not able to get enough experience because they are not yet hired. We've seen this a little bit already. How do you see this kind of playing out, having been in the industry for quite some time, Dror?
Yeah, I don't view it exactly this way. So given some perspective about the history of computing. So initially when we had computers, I don't know how many of you remember, but basically the people who were to use a computer, you had to type instructions using machine code. So you organize the bits in the registers, and you'd write a binary program with machine code. It was extremely tedious and very obviously very slow to write any meaningful code this way. And then came compilers, and there started to be programming languages like Fortran and C and all that, and suddenly you can write your code in text. And what this means? This means a higher level of abstraction, and the skill set that suddenly you don't need to understand how to organize the bits and the opcodes in register. You just need to focus on the logic. It was still very technical, very tedious. And then came languages like Java, where suddenly you don't need to worry about memory management, to allocate memory and free up memory. And whoop, that skill became less and less relevant. So and there is in parallel there are low code platforms and no code platforms. So I think and throughout all this history, what we've seen, okay, is this the end of development? Okay, and it has always been the other way around almost. Developers got to do so much more, and there was so much more demand. It does mean adaptations of the skills required for from development. So again, as I said before, now in the era of AI, developers are more guides to the AI, what code they want the AI to implement, and they need to focus more on the customer problem, on communications, on structuring the code correctly. I think this is going to be this is the next phase of this discipline. I think maybe a good analogy, useful analogy, is navigation. Those of you who are old enough maybe remember that if you want to drive into a city you were not familiar with, you had to look in maps and find and figure out how to get from point A to point B. It was not that easy. And today this task, is completely, you don't need to do it. You have Google Maps or Waze or Apple Maps or whatever, and you just drive and follow the instructions. You just tell the system where you want to go, and it will figure out the details. So I think we'll see a process that is like that, and I really recommend junior developers to get adapted to that, to get adapted to such that the core competence isn't knowing to use library A or library B, because again, that the AI can really solve for them, but to really understand and analyze the customer problem and model the code correctly.
Great. I think we have I think Danushka has one last question. Will Tabnine code generating speed depending on the internet connection speed? I think, Drew, let's answer this directly, but I also think your experience around where we've seen developers use Tabnine most efficiently is interesting. So yeah, a little bit of it, I think the architecture and would be interesting on this answer. But again, the question, will Tabnine code generating speed depend on the internet connection speed?
Yeah, it depends mostly on latency and not bandwidth. So for instance, if I am in Tel Aviv, which is a remote part of the world from our service, and I have a high bandwidth, so the high bandwidth doesn't matter. The only part that matters is the latency. What's the time of a round trip to the nearest server? Very soon we're gonna have servers anywhere, but even today, it typically takes not more than 500 milliseconds. For those of you in the United States or North America, it's going to be a lot faster. And architecturally, the way Tabnine works, we have a pretty sophisticated caching. So how you experience it is oftentimes completely instantaneously.
Dror, thank you. I'm going to finish up with everyone and say, if there's any last minute questions, we have just the last 2-3 minutes. We greatly appreciate y'all spending the time with us here on a day that's been exciting to us, exciting to have you all along for the ride. Please let us know any kind of experience that we can be of help with your organizations adopting Tabnine. Oftentimes that may be something that if you have senior leadership asking these questions of how and where does generative AI fit? What are the guardrails that I should have around it? What kind of response can I expect from it? How do I use this in a way that's going to be both secure and valuable? Those are questions we would love to wrestle through with you all as we go through this. So I will leave it on that. I apologize. We are just finished up on time. So thank you all for joining us today. So much appreciate your time, and look for more of these. We'll continue to add more. If you have any suggestions, feel free to ask on subjects that you're wrestling with that we can help add a little bit of knowledge to. And we got to learn a lot from all of you today too. Ton of good questions. I think we're well over 30. So my fingers are tired. I need to get back to speed typing. I'm not fast enough in getting everything out, but I think I covered almost all of them. So thank you all for a great day. Look forward to chatting with you all.
Thank you, Brandon, for hosting this.
Of course.
Great.
Cheers all.
Thank you.
Thank you.